Good afternoon, everybody. It's December 6th, 2025. It's Saturday, and it is almost 3, about 10 minutes to 3 o'clock. And as far as news is concerned, let's start right away. A lot of the news here is still centering a lot around Vladimir Putin's trip to India and, the results of the trip. And they're stressing that the relationship between the two countries will be one of special privilege. And somebody wrote something in one of my videos. I guess it was the short video that I made the other day because I neglected to mention Putin's trip to India when I did my video on that day. So I added another short video. I think it was like 6 minutes long. And one person that's possibly from India, also, or maybe Iran. I'm not too sure. Anyway, I'm not going to guess on where that person was from. But I didn't pay that much attention. But anyway, they seem to be pretty up on the information about what's going on with India, and that they've already had a special relationship with India. And I guess it's more special than with China. And in the past, I guess if you go back many years, maybe a decade or two, Russia has had kind of a rough relationship with China. And they've always had a good relationship with India. And I think that person was trying to get that point across. And this one is going to be maybe even better. At least, there's kind of a suspicious feeling a little bit between Russia and China. And normally has been, I guess, because of many decades ago. But no, they still get along. And it's maybe a little bit similar to like a relationship between France and Germany or France and the UK. But, they all get along now, and at least that's a good thing. It shows that these animosities towards other people, they don't necessarily always last forever. And hopefully, any kind of differences between Pakistan and India can be solved as well. You can even put that sort of animosity amongst religions. The Israelis have mentioned that they, at least as far as Israel is concerned, or a lot of times in modern days, a lot of them have made, a big light out of the fact that they get Muslims and Christians to fight each other when the religions are actually quite related. And Judaism, and I've mentioned before, and other people have mentioned it, you have this term, it's called Judeo-Christian. And some people go as far as to say that's a contradiction of terms, because traditionally a lot of Jews, they hate Jesus, and Christians obviously love Jesus. And then a lot of people are saying, well, how can that possibly be that you have a Zionist Christian? And that is a big mystery anyway. But you have people, as you all see, like Mike Pompeo. I mentioned that in so many videos. Mike Pompeo or Mike Huckabee or Ted Cruz, and basically they've pledged their loyalty to Judaism. It's very strange, or to Israel. It kind of makes you wonder, well, why don't they just convert? I mean, it's very strange. Why don't they just convert to Judaism? But anyway, it's a mystery that I guess a lot of people are not able to solve or something. You can come up with a lot of different reasons, but none of those reasons hold any water. It's just kind of funny. But I don't know. I don't know how far Trump goes. Trump is obviously a Zionist, I guess you would say, maybe a Zionist Christian, but he's just not as fanatical as, say, somebody like Ted Cruz. And who would ever vote for some people like this, like Ted Cruz, or say Mike Huckabee, who ran for president just as much as Ted Cruz has ran for president of the United States? Who would actually want those people to be presidents of the United States when they pledge their ultimate loyalties to a foreign country? It just doesn't make sense. And I don't know. What about President Johnson? I guess he had his loyalties also towards Israel. He was like the first, I guess you could say, the Zionist president or whatever. And remember the USS Liberty. If you don't know anything about that, the attack on the USS Liberty, you have to look that up and look at all of the hidden attempts by President Johnson to cover a lot of things up, and especially towards Israel, so that Israel comes out smelling like a rose. And I guess the first one that was actually going after Israel was Kennedy. And we know what happened to Kennedy. And if you know about that phrase that is attributed to President Lyndon B. Johnson, and it said, just make me president and I'll give you your G-O-D, damn war. So anyway, after talking, I don't like to use like God's name in vain anyway, because that's supposed to be bad, so I don't want to do that. Anyhow, and it's like I keep even mentioning, I mention in a lot of videos, like a lot of Christians don't think that I'm a Christian because I don't believe in things the way they do, and I just have my own beliefs, and I'm not going to state them again. I just, but in some ways, maybe in some people, they would say I'm far more Christian than people that proclaim themselves to be Christian. But I don't know. I'm not going to try to pronounce any kind of a judgment on them or say what is Christian and what isn't. I guess there are different views on that. So, and I'm not even going to even say that I'm a Christian. I just have a, I don't know if you'd call it a love or a great respect for Jesus more than anybody that has ever walked the earth. In some ways, that makes me a Christian. I don't know. I'm not going to get into it. So let's just get on to another subject, I guess, right? So let's see. Yeah, you get the feeling, I guess, from this relationship with India that they're it's similar to maybe because they're removing all restrictions for anything India in Russia, and it might be the same in India. So you get this, I guess you call it this embrace. You get this feeling as if it's like a member of the not the Russian Empire or the like a Russian Commonwealth or the Russian Federation, or it's maybe even something akin to the Union State that Russia shares with Belarus. So I mean that's because it's supposed to be a very special, privileged relationship, and I don't know if the relationship between Belarus and Russia goes that much farther than that. So it's very similar. That's the only point I want to stress. I don't know, maybe a lot of people are not coming to that realization yet, but they probably will. And we'll see how this develops. And I guess it's supposed to be like an increase in trade. I think they want to hit 100 billion before 2030. The trade between the two countries, India and Russia. We'll see. And another big important thing that Putin came out and said, he said Russia will continue selling oil and gas to India, fuels and things. So that is very significant after Donald Trump coming out and stating that India will no longer be buying oil from Russia. So I wonder if that's going to change Donald Trump's relationship with Modi. We're gonna see. So there's going to be some potential sparks right there, or maybe Donald Trump is. If anybody questions Donald Trump, I would like to see what his answer is. So I don't know. Maybe it's one of those taboo questions you're not allowed to ask the president of the United States in the future. We'll find out. Wow. So this is all in spite of Donald Trump's so-called punishment of India. I think he's got 25% tariffs on India right now, or maybe Donald Trump is going to raise it to 50% or even higher. It's going to be very interesting. And I put out the news that I was getting the impression, or maybe I don't know who put that out, that India was then going to be buying oil from Saudi Arabia, which is not really that far. I don't know. And then somebody put something out days ago that there's going to be some connection with Guyana, and Guyana is now a big oil producer. I don't know how that's going to go with the disputed territory where I guess most of the oil is. It's disputed with Venezuela. So a lot of geopolitical possibilities are going to be opening up in the future with maybe some wars and disputes. A lot of it, of course, centers around oil and gas. Yes. I don't know. Maybe Trump is going to raise his tariffs to 100% against India. Yeah. But Trump, if you all noticed, he seems to have two big tools in his toolbox. He's got a big tool, man. But anyway, Trump is, J.D. Vance said something about a tool or something with his wife on stage just yesterday. But anyway, his tools in his toolbox seem to be tariffs and bombings. So, he used the bombing on Iran, he used the bombing on Yemen. But I've always suspected, and it's proven itself in practice, that Donald Trump seems to have a very strong dislike for Muslims or Muslim countries. I don't know how I get that impression, but anyhow, what about the people in Gaza? So, Gaza is not faring very well either. And yeah, so the tools, tariffs and bombs. And the CIA, they have a few more tools, and CIA seems to operate a little bit independently of the President of the United States. And of course, they use a lot of tools, and they even use Israel, and they use the Mossad. I mean, the Israeli Mossad, and they use the MI6, and of course, so they can bring in a lot more tools there. A lot of those three agencies, they work together. Israel is the king of, and Britain. The MI6 is the masters of sabotage. And the CIA, they got their tools too, so we'll see what's going to happen. Yeah, I'm not saying anything's happening to Modi or nothing. I'm not implying anything like that. But anyway, there's just different tools. And then it makes you wonder, who's the one that started the pandemic? That's a big tool too, to, manipulate the world into whatever you want. I mean, hey, that's why I'm in Belarus anyway. But, too bad you can't sue. Who would I sue to get, why I had to leave so early and get out of there? I would have been a lot better off, saving and saving and saving money from what I made in coffee business down there. So, yes. So, as you know, Trump's ultimate goal was always to, destroy Russia, of course, but he wants to be the global hegemon. The United States, I don't know, it seems like the West in general, they have this desire to be the masters of the universe. They want to rule. I mean, I'm not talking necessarily about Germany, with World War I and World War II. It's mostly the United States, ever since World War II, even during World War II, they want to destroy, or not destroy, they want to control the world. And Trump wants to, be the one that makes America great again, I guess, geopolitically. And one of his goals, of course, is to destroy BRICS. And one thing, I don't know, maybe Donald Trump, he seems to take orders, or at least maybe just be partners. I don't know, that Israel, I get the impression, because Israel gets whatever Israel wants, and Donald Trump seems to be like a Israeli firster, more so than he is America first, because it's been a lot of people in Congress. But Israel, like, they own most of the United States Congress, the senators. They even own the judicial system. They have a lot of ownership of Hollywood. I mean, so very much. You can't really watch the news without seeing something about Israel on there, and it's. I don't know. What do you say? I don't know. Maybe they're the masters of the universe already, Israel. But yeah, Donald Trump does everything for Israel, and so it's like, well, who is the global hegemon, and is it the United States, or is it the country that controls the United States by controlling Congress and everybody else inside of it? The presidency, I don't know about, I'm not saying the Supreme Court, but I think everybody's afraid to make a move in the United States, because of Israel. Israel has, I don't know, Mossad, AIPAC. They have more tools in their toolbox than Trump does, obviously. Too bad we can't ask Charlie Kirk about that, because anyway, Charlie Kirk was very probably the result of Israel's power. So Charlie Kirk's death anyway. So, and it's weird because the EU and the UK, they see the United States as the master. So I guess it's like a hierarchy. So you have the EU and the UK look up to the United States as massa. And then maybe Trump and the Congress, they look up Israel as being massa. So it's kind of like Israel's already the master of the universe. And I I don't know. Israel has one time come out and said, and I've used this phrase, and it's the honest to God truth. Israeli people have said this. They said it's cheaper to buy a politician than to buy a tank, and they bought a lot of politicians, and we all know that. And of course, how did they buy that? They bought it with U.S. money. That is the biggest. That's the biggest scheme that you could ever imagine. So they've created this system where the U.S. government, it steals, it takes the money from the people. A lot of that money floats over to Israel, and then Israel sends a lot of that money back to buy the politicians. And it's like, makes you wonder if there's anybody that's ever going to cut off this money flow. And Ukraine was getting this money flow, and somehow it works with the European Union. It's absolutely fascinating just following the money. What did they say in the Rush Hour movie that apparently Donald Trump likes, because he seems to have had a lot of, clout in causing what will become very shortly the Rush Hour 4, Who did he talk to? He talked to somebody to make another Rush Hour 4. And what did Chris Tucker say in one of the Rush Hours? Follow the rich white man, or I don't know. It's like follow the money. It's the same thing. Follow the money. And yeah, fascinating. I don't know. Don't want to talk more about that. Normally it goes in the form of corporations. I guess Marjorie Taylor Greene was given some speech somewhere, and she was saying just as much, that you have these powerful corporations such as BlackRock, pushing around, I guess, all the local communities. And BlackRock, of course, bought a lot of what is in Ukraine, and they want to see Ukraine win the war. And, well, that's not going to happen. The leader of Belgium just said that, and I think I have a quote. I have a quote in a little bit from him. So, so the EU just said that they will increase the cyber war. I mentioned it yesterday on Russia, and so let's see what happens there. And I think that might mean what they were saying, that they were talking about a preemptive strike on Russia. Does that mean the cyber war? Or does that mean a military strike? A lot of people are talking about that. Gives Trump impetus to come up with his new national security strategy, and we'll talk about that too. So, yeah. So what else? India and Modi, they're making a bold move to show the U.S. that India is not a U.S. puppet state. The United States, Trump is trying to push a lot of people, under his puppet strings, I guess, lately, with tariffs and all that, and try to show everybody who the boss is. And India basically is saying, oh, well, we're not going to play with that. We're already powerful enough. India actually pulls on the leash, I guess you could say, as a term. Iran, I mean, and they don't want to be the United States puppet either. That's why they got bombed, I guess, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. Another bombing. And apparently they're getting ready for that too, but I don't know when that's going to come about. It might even take many months, maybe take even a year. But at some time, it looks like it's in the future. Another bombing of Iran by, the partners in crime, Israel and the United States. Jeez, it's going to probably be another one, a replay of what just happened a couple months ago. Yeah. So Putin seeks to preserve independence and sovereignty for all these nations, any nations. I guess he's pushing for that. And the United States is pushing for nations to be subservient and for the United States to be the hegemon. I guess that's a complete difference in how the geopolitical view looks for Putin and Trump. And you would wonder whose view is going to work out, or whose methodology. It's interesting. And yeah, I guess you can look at Ukraine. Ukraine is actually a good example. The United States sought to use and control Ukraine to create an anti-Russia. So that would have been anti-Russia, and yeah, I guess that was part of their dream. I guess they said, bring Russia to its knees. The strategic defeat of Russia. So, and I guess, like I said, the anti-Russia was going to be Ukraine. A lot of people are talking about how that was really a masterful thing. And maybe, they thought Belarus was going to be easy. I've mentioned that in a lot of videos. And Belarus was supposed to fall before Ukraine, but Lukashenko threw the brick into the cogs of the wheel there, and I guess they had to, move right on to Ukraine, and maybe thought, oh, we'll get Belarus later. And Victoria Nuland, she said before Congress, she said they're still not going to give up on regime change in Belarus. So that was before she left the State Department. And who knows? Who knows? I don't know. But this new United States security strategy, I don't know. What does it mean? Brian Berletic is not too... I'll get to that too. So much stuff I have to get to. But a lot of that comes up, while I'm talking right now to keep you guys in suspense. By the way, subscribe and push the like button. I guess pushing the like button, that foils YouTube and Google's attempts to suppress my channel. So I don't know if it does or not. They can probably get rid of the likes as well, as well as the views. So plan A was obviously, to destroy Russia, and it didn't work. And so Donald Trump, I guess he's looked like he really has relegated himself to plan B, and that's probably actually what Brian Berletic said, is to put it on hold, to put on the Russian conflict on hold. And I guess I'll put this out before I talk about the United States' new security strategy. Brian Berletic is saying that the security strategy is actually to put this Ukraine-Russia conflict on hold, and actually cede some of the responsibility, of course, to Europe, while the United States does what Obama called back then the pivot to Asia. So the United States wants to concern itself a lot more with China, and there's a big buildup going on, I guess, they call it the Indo-Pacific, but I guess what that means is the Pacific and maybe even India as well. I don't know. I don't know about that word Indo-Pacific, because the United States is trying to challenge anything that could possibly become a friendship with China. And right now, I guess they're working on sending a lot of nuclear-powered submarines to South Korea, and they just delivered a huge amount of big, powerful bombs to South Korea. And who they're going to use it against, I don't know. It's possibly North Korea, because North Korea has also recently, as you all know, pledged a lot of support to Russia, and they look at Russia as their brothers. So that's strange. There's two sides, as you see, coming about, and you're going to see North Korea, obviously, China, probably, I don't know, India likes to try to stay out of everything, but you never know, and who knows? So the U.S. is actually now slowly starting their pivot to Asia, and they're probably really trying to make a big military buildup over there, and they're divorcing themselves, as you see, from Ukraine, and EU refuses to let go. They want to continue this. Interesting world, isn't it? So, what else? What will be Trump's big next adventure? And I don't think it's going to be Iran. And we were watching already this fictitious narco dealer war in Venezuela. And some people say even with the drugs that may actually be coming from Venezuela, it is very, very small that any of that goes to the United States. They say by far and away, a lot of that is mostly coming from Mexico. I guess that's the fentanyl. I don't really know. And I think Trump or some people are saying that the fentanyl is manufactured in China, but I don't really know. Maybe it's the drug cartels purchasing this at a cheap price from China. I don't even know that it comes from China. And then they send it to get extra money to the United States. But traditionally, the United States has also worked with drug cartels like the Sinaloa. Ben Swan became famous by exposing that. The United States, I guess, CIA, for the most part, working with drug cartels to bring drugs into the United States. And as I said long time before, when you saw the Iran-Contra affair back in the Reagan days, when the CIA was exposed using U.S. taxpayer money to fund their black ops operations, like overthrowing governments like in Iran, which is exactly what happened, U.S. taxpayer money to get rid of Mossadegh, and in Guatemala and maybe Chile. And so they stopped a lot of taxpayers' money going to the CIA to fund all these black ops operations. So the United States had to go into the drug trade, and a lot of that was maybe in the earlier years was marijuana, ganja, where they call it, where I used to live in the Caribbean, and they used to, like I said, come and destroy the marijuana fields from that island where I lived on in the Caribbean. And but anyway, the United States, I guess, further went into cocaine and all that. It's a lot more money, and selling cocaine, and a lot of that has to do with a lot of the drugs coming into the United States. The CIA was facilitating that. They would get a lot of the money, and then they can do their operations all over the world. And I think it continues to this very day. It's very much like the heroin and the opium in Afghanistan. United States soldiers, there's photos of U.S. soldiers guarding the opium fields in Afghanistan. When the Taliban was there, they had eradicated all of the opium trade, and then the United States invaded, and all of a sudden opium was blooming all over again, and probably now they got rid of it again. But it's a big money maker. A lot of that opium was going into Russia, and Russia was pretty pissed off about that too, that the United States basically was selling opium in Russia. So I don't know. They raised that as a big stink at one time when I remember it was big in the news. Anyway, a lot of this stuff, a lot of you may not have ever heard of, but this is all the truth. You can look it all up yourself. I think Brian Berletic, a lot of people will talk about that. So anyway, it probably, I don't know. I don't know if Donald Trump's next big adventure will be in Venezuela. I don't know. Maybe some people say that it might be this so-called anti-Christian killing or whatever in Nigeria. And I'm sure there are some rebels. I'm sure it's not the government, has anything to do with any killing of any Christians or any religion. But maybe there are groups that are doing and killing some Christians. And I don't know if Donald Trump is going to go there. It's very strange. Venezuela has a huge amount of oil. As far as Nigeria, they're the biggest oil-producing country in Africa. But what am I? And Iran, bombing Iran. Well, Iran has oil too. I mean, how? That's just a coincidence, everybody. Just get that out of your mind. It's just a coincidence that Donald Trump is going after these places. So, yes. And I think one thing why Donald Trump can walk away from Ukraine is, he was talking about this rare earths deal. That was really big for a little while. Zelensky making deals, when it was the rare earths. Remember that spat in the Oval Office? A lot of that was about the rare earths, and a lot of people are believing that there are no real rare earths. There's very little there in Ukraine, and what rare earths there are, there is a decent amount. Of course, they have lithium in Donbass area, but that's under Russian control. And a lot of people have said, well, there's not so many rare earths as you believe. And anyway, Donald Trump has made a lot of deals with a lot of countries, such as Australia, to get rare earths from those places. So maybe that's why he's also losing his taste for staying in Ukraine and staying the course. So, and he probably actually does want to establish peace, but I guess he's got his reasons, as Vladimir Putin said. You have to watch the video I made yesterday. I believe I mentioned it then. Putin's words. Yeah, but some, like I said, say that, there's no rare earths, or not very many in Ukraine, and Zelensky was using that as a trick to string Trump along and maybe get him to support his adventures against Russia. Very strange, this ideology of hatred. These people, I've talked about that, and it is so bizarre that these people, that these, what do you call them, Banderites, they have, it's like in their DNA, they've been raised since small children to hate Russia. They bring up the children to hate Russia. And of course, a lot of that's spread, like I'm saying, all over into Europe. Places like, look at Merz, you look at van der Leyen, you look at the Baltic states, undeniably. There are Russian-speaking people and pro-Russian people in the Baltic states, but then, they're trying to spread Russian hate. There's a lot of that in Poland. It's mostly all the people up in the top. As a matter of fact, you cannot become a leader, for the most part. In most of those countries, it is extremely difficult for you to ever become a leader unless you hate Russia. So it's a rarity when you see this new leader, I guess, in the Czech Republic. He's not frothing at the mouth, anti-Russian, and you had Fico came in. Orban has been able to hold out, but look at Moldova, and look at the Baltics, look at Poland. These people, most of the time, half of their dreams at night are how much they hate Russia. The other half is, who knows how much money they're going to cheat, or the corruption that they're going to profit from, or whatever. There's a lot of Western leaders like that. You guys are all seeing that now. It's right before our eyes, So Trump's next scheduled big political move is against the three BRICS is in April, early April. So that's a long time away. That's when he is supposed to, that's months. What is it now? Let's see, just say December is gone. January, February, March, April. So that's 4 months before he can go to China. So he's going to be working on that to somehow show up Putin and try to maybe drive a wedge between Russia and China, because it looks like there's a bond now, a very strong bond between Russia and India. So his only hope would be, and Donald Trump, that's, what do they call it? They call it the RICS. RIC nations, the RIC, which is Russia, India, and China. Those are the three biggies. And Donald Trump has to probably try to destroy those. And one thing, people were saying, Russia, they don't have an economy. They don't, of course they certainly do. Russia is what, the fourth biggest economy in the world? And then if you look at these countries, if you go back, say, 20 years ago, they said these emerging economies, which would have, which are the BRICS, that's what they called the BRICS, these emerging economies. And if you look at now, the most powerful economies in the world, of course, the US is definitely in there, and China. And I guess it depends on your perspective and what facts you use. Well, which one is bigger? Is it China or is it the United States? And nevertheless, they're both up there. But who is in third place? Well, that's India. Who is in fourth place? Well, that's Russia. So these BRICS nations, 3 out of the top 4 nations now, economic nations, are the BRICS countries, are 3 of them, the RIC countries. So you can't mess with that. And that's one reason why Putin says, why do I want to be in the G8? And he basically said that they're a bunch of losers. Why do I want to be with a bunch of losers? I'll just stick with the SCO, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, and the BRICS. That's where it's at, baby. Yeah, you just can't make this stuff up. And look at Germany and France and the UK. They are purposefully destroying their own countries. They're destroying their culture, they're destroying their demographics, they're destroying their economy. It's right in front of your eyes. And I even talked about this when I first came over here, even though I knew it already when I was living in St. Vincent. But that was back in, we're talking back in early 2022, I talked about this in the springtime, being frustrated watching. That was then Olaf Scholz destroying his own country. Absolutely incredible. First they want to cut off cheap Russian fuel, and they want to pay 3 times more for their energy, the energy that drives their economy. I don't even want to talk about it. It's just beyond comprehension that any leaders would be so incredibly stupid as these people. It's definitely, I don't know, why do they call it the EU? Why don't they call it the Idiocracy instead of the EU? Wow. So anyway, Trump meets Xi in China in, I guess, about 4 months. And Trump needs a win. Let me put it that way. Trump needs a big win because the Republicans are trailing way behind the Democrats right now in the polls. And I said that is all Trump's doing. All of the things that Trump is doing, Epstein, his embracing of Israel and the genocide that Israel is conducting, and on. I mean, there's just too many things. So Trump has got to start cleaning up his act a little bit, or else they're gonna lose. But he's got 11 months. I guess that is in early November. I think it's November 3rd when all the congressional seats come up for grabs. Technically speaking, virtually all of them. And if Democrats are going to get 80% of the Congress, that is going to be like a landslide like you have never seen before. And remember, that's where the money is allocated, is from the House of Representatives. So who decides and who plans and where the money is spent? That is the Congress. It is not Donald Trump. For your information, that is the Congress. If it's not approved by Congress, it doesn't happen. So if Donald Trump loses the House of Representatives, they were elected every 2 years, and it's supposed to be that they're closer to the real views of the people of the United States. That's why they have to be reelected every 2 years, which is kind of a pain in the ass, if you ask me. As soon as they get elected, they have to start working on their reelection again. But in some ways, it's good. But running for Congress, running for any position is very expensive nowadays. So you have to really know what you're doing with money-wise, and you have to have your supporters, your donors, which is sometimes leads to a lot of corruption. Anyway, so said all that. Yeah. So, I said about all of this stuff already. Yeah, what I should say is Donald Trump, with his actions, and look what he showed us with this Epstein stuff. Instead of draining the swamp, Donald Trump he's moved into the swamp, and Donald Trump, maybe he's a swamp creature himself. It's just incredible. But now he's using as his big propaganda, he's going around and acting as if I'm stopping all these wars. I'm stopping all these wars. All the other things that he promised, I don't know, but he's starting wars too, it looks like. I guess you got to pick on weak countries like Yemen and bomb them to smithereens, and so there's actually never a war. It's just him just bombing these countries, putting them further back into the Stone Age, I guess. Okay. As far as Russia is concerned, they're really moving on the battlefield. And Zelensky, obviously, he's going crazy. And he went to part of Zaporozhye so that he could film the sign in the background and acting as if he's in total control of all of Zaporozhye. But hey, isn't that where Europe's biggest nuclear power plant is located, under full control of Russia? Actually, Russia is starting to, and they didn't really pay that much attention into Zaporozhye, but now, the U.S., or Russia, they're advancing in so many places on the front lines, and of course now they're making actually some bigger gains in the Zaporozhye area than they have for a long, long time. They didn't really concentrate so much on Zaporozhye. They were actually more concentrating on Donetsk and Lugansk. They got all of Lugansk, I think, right now. And they've even moved into some different areas that are not part of the Donbass. And they might even actually, I'm sure Russia will actually withdraw from those. That is probably the territories that they're talking about, because they're not part of those oblasts, not part of Lugansk and Donetsk, and they're not part of course, maybe what's considered the Donbass. So Russia may move from those as part of the peace agreement. So that is the swap of territories that they're talking about. And Zelensky keeps losing more and more of Donetsk, and maybe Russia keeps gaining a little bit more. And I think it's Dnipro Pros or something, that's the oblast, I believe, is the name. And so it might be an equal swap, the same size of territory. But Sersky put out in some video, I guess, talk, I think it was today, by the way, either today, very early, or it was maybe later yesterday, I don't know, that he said that he does not want to cede any of the territory, sign any deal. Zelensky is the same way, that would allow legally Russia to keep any of those territories. So it looks like in so many ways it's not any further along this peace process than it was already 2 years ago. Yeah. Yeah, but of course Zelensky's using that, that little video, I guess, for propaganda, and I guess a lot of it is also aimed at the European Union. Say, see, we still have Zaporozhye. So anyway, I talked about that already. Oh, this week, Russia shot down 1,120 drones, and they either wounded badly to take them out of the conflict or killed over 9,000 Ukrainian troops. And if you want to start even just today, which was not part of those statistics that I just told you, this over 9,000 troops, I think it was 9,050. So, but just in the last 24 hours, and it was just put out that in one day, in addition, like I said, to what I just told you, Ukraine lost another 1,450 troops badly wounded or killed in the last 24 hours, like I said, and they shot down 366 drones. Like I said, that was just put out. That was just put out maybe even less than an hour ago by Russia, and that was covering this last 24 hours. So, wow. And this, like I said, U.S. national security strategy, that was changed. Donald Trump just announced that, and I guess it means to Donald Trump that there will be no more NATO expansion. The United States wants to have no part of any NATO expansions anymore. It's probably going to be changed after Trump leaves office. So, and I'm thinking what this is going to do, it's going to bring about, in my opinion, the irrelevance of NATO and cause what I was talking about, what is definitely going to be coming around, definitely is going to be coming around pretty soon. And this is just more evidence. Remember, I was telling you that I have this suspicion, and I think there's been some inklings about it, whisperings here and there that point the same direction, is that Europe wants to start their own military alliance. And of course, you've already heard for maybe over 2 years, maybe longer, that Europe wants to start a European army. And what this will contain, if they just start it from scratch, it's going to be very much like NATO, but with the absence of the United States and probably Turkey, the absence of Turkey, I believe. Who knows? Because I haven't heard any talk about that. But it will be all of these Baltics. It'll be Poland. It'll be the UK. It'll be Germany and France and whoever, any of those people there. Probably, I don't think Hungary would want to join this sort of a thing because they want also Ukraine. They will put Ukraine in there. So Ukraine will automatically have what they would call security guarantees, and that would definitely come with an Article 5 guarantee. An Article 5, as you know, is that if one country is attacked by anyone, all of the countries have been attacked. So all of them are obligated to go to war against whoever attacked any member of this alliance. And it will not actually come about while there's a war going on with Ukraine and Russia, because that would be kind of stupid, because automatically all of these countries, and maybe it already is, but I don't know, are they going to, maybe they can pull it off while there is actually hostilities between Russia and Ukraine, and pull it off to where Russia is not going to immediately start bombing them, because I don't know. I doubt very much that they're going to immediately start attacking Russia, because that would then bring a bombing. And Russia said they are ready. If you want to do that, we can go down that road too. That's what Vladimir Putin said. He just said that, what was it, yesterday or the day before? But obviously you all know that is part of it anyway. Even if the United States were to join, they're not going to step back. They are not going to step back from what is going on right now. There's no way that Russia is going to surrender. And that is, of course, what the EU has in effect been demanding this whole time. And Zelensky, they're all sitting there saying, basically demanding that Russia surrender. And that's not going to happen. And Donald Trump knows that. And other people know that too. Belgium even knows that. So we'll talk about that in a second, as I said. And but they would need a truce. And Donald Trump, Brian Berletic, as I was saying, he was saying that that even the United States, what they want is a truce, and then to continue the conflict at some time later. So if they get some sort of a truce or a ceasefire, which Russia is not necessarily going to go for unless it's under certain terms, but if this comes about, then of course they can start this new European military with Ukraine in it. And then if the hostilities ever do start again, which of course that is the plan, then of course they're all at war with Russia, except for the United States, of course. So let's keep going. So that was big geopolitical chess movement news yesterday, U.S. national security strategy. So what is this I was saying here? The impetus for this is that Trump sees the endless confrontation and escalation of Western aggression towards Russia. And I think he even said as much. He said it will, undeniably and inevitably lead to nuclear war, which it will. It certainly will. If they keep on going down the path they're going right now, it definitely will end in a nuclear war. It will lead to nuclear war. And there is no doubt about that. Scott Ritter has said that. So many people have said that. But it looks like there's a bunch of idiots. Like I said, it's an idiocracy in Europe. I don't know. They're infantile brains or whatever. I mean, look at Kaja Kallas. And she even said again, what was it, just yesterday, or was it today, or was it yesterday? That she said that Russia has attacked all of these countries, and none of these countries have ever attacked Russia. And the only thing that she can actually construe to a large extent, or, barring the fact that they provoked Russia, so she will probably say Afghanistan, and she'll say Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. Well, a lot of those were provocations, obviously. And it actually started with, as you know, Georgia, that they were trying to go to war, and that was Saakashvili's attack of South Ossetia. That's how that started. And I think it was also Abkhazia. He attacked Abkhazia also at the same time, which is actually to the north, and of course that's also borders with Russia. So, anyway, Abkhazia, very interesting country, by the way. So, I want to go there. I really do. So, let's keep going here. So, anyway, Donald Trump knows about this. And at least he's acknowledged the fact that it's always an aggression against Russia. That is written between the lines. Yeah. And maybe one of the straws that broke the camel's back, and I don't know if it did, it was actually some leaders, and one of them was from Latvia, and it's like a straw that broke the camel's back when they said about this preemptive strike on Russia. It's kind of like, what a bunch of insanity, Like I said yesterday, or in the other videos, they lose the moral high ground if they're going to attack Russia. Do you think the world opinion is going to be on their side? And of course, another thing is they can't defeat Russia anyway. It's pretty stupid if you ask. I mean, I don't know. Coming up with all of the stupidity, it's just endless. I don't know how can you even talk about this stuff. So, like I said, it's the endless. Supposedly, this brings about the endless expansion of NATO. Brian Berletic analyzed it, and he said the strategy is not ending the confrontation against Russia, but only freezing it, and that, of course, and they're sharing the brunt of the costs with sharing. He didn't say that we're transferring, that the United States is transferring it. So in other words, the United States will still be paying for a lot of this, but it'll be shared with Europe having to share the cost of making war against Russia. And they don't have any money, of course. Yeah. And the U.S. helps drain them by charging them so much for the LNG and whatever else. And Donald Trump, as he said, we've been the suckers all this time, and they've been overcharging us in tariffs. And so now, I don't know. Yes, okay. Trump's ambassador to Turkey, his name is Tom Barak. He's a former senior advisor to Donald Trump, and he said, I think it was either yesterday, might have been today, I don't know, because these are all new things. They don't put the dates on when these people said this. that all of the time that the U.S. has done regime change, it has never worked. He said never worked. And my response is like, it depends on your perspective, I guess. If they wanted to cause, or destabilize countries, of course, then it has worked. And I don't know, make these countries stay poor. There is a doctrine in the United States, too, is to keep other people's poorer, to keep them down. So, yeah. So in other words, it's worked most of the time. And you look at Libya. Libya is a great example. Libya was getting richer and richer in leaps and bounds. And of course, then they'd invaded Libya, stole the weapons, sent them to Syria. As you all know, that was Hillary Clinton's move under Barack Obama's time. And they caused massive instability. I still don't know if it's that stable in Libya. In Iran's case, the invasion of Iran, regime change back then, with Mossadegh and all that. Who knows? That's questionable. So the Prime Minister of Belgium, I said I was get to that. His name is Bart de Wever. I guess, depending on how you pronounce it, W-E-V-E-R, Weber, I don't know. He said that stealing the foreign frozen assets of another country, such as what they're trying to do to Russia, what the European Union is trying to do to Russia, he said it's never been done before. So that nobody has ever done that. And of course, they're all trying to force Belgium, who will actually suffer for it if they ever do that. And all these other people like Ursula von der Leyen or Kayak, that's your problem, but that's why they're trying to sucker Belgium. And Belgium seems to know that. The Prime Minister of Belgium, as I just said, De Wever, he knows that. They're suckering Belgium and making Belgium become the fall guy for when this goes awry. They know that this is going to, and that's why they've been saying no, 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 how difficult is that to get that into their head? No. And he said, De Wever, the leader of Belgium, he said, to think that Russia was going to lose, he was basically saying that it's a fairy tale, a complete illusion to imagine that Russia will lose this war in Ukraine. So, and that they're going to be paying reparations. Yeah. So many people said that. Like I keep saying all the time that Tulsi Gabbard, she said that immediately. They said, what a stupid idea to go to war against. Trump even has said at times, it's a stupid idea to go to war against Russia. So, yeah. But you got von der Leyen, Merz, Kallas, so many others, Starmer, Macron, and they keep on. They never give up. Keep trying to find new ways to say, this justifies stealing the money. Yeah. And I said something about General Sersky, who's the leader of all of the military in Ukraine. And he said, without Trump, he said, we'll just keep fighting. Yeah, good luck. With no money. Already all the money's getting stolen and things don't get to the troops in the front line and they're already depleted. So I don't know. They think that this money from the European Union is going to be enough. Well, if they stopped stealing all the money, the huge amount of that money was stolen, as you all know. And some people put up to estimated from the 360 billion that went from the United States, it's estimated that up to 106 billion of that was stolen by all of these crooks. And of course, that's not all in Ukraine. It's people in Europe, the EU, that also even stole American money. So not to mention European money. Wow. So good luck on that anyway. So the bosses, Pavel Durov of Telegram and Rumble and X, which is Musk, all that, they've all come out and they exposed that the EU, what a bunch of crooks in the EU. It's absolutely incredible. The EU is pressuring and has been pressuring them to censor people. And they said that they went to them and they secretly went to them. Pavel Durov exposed this immediately. They secretly went to him, and they went to all of these guys to secretly censor people from their platforms. And it's... You ever wonder why they didn't do that with Google? Why they didn't do that with YouTube? It's because they are already censoring people. And they do it in their own ways, obviously. And as all you know, with my channel, and I keep bringing it out, and some people maybe say, "Oh, you're stupid for exposing YouTube for doing the things that they do to you, like removing your views to make it so your channel does not go further. It just keeps staying back." And but they do it in a lot of other ways. You know, they suppress people's channels. And George Galloway has put that out. Tulsi Gabbard put that out. Candace Owens, I think she's put that out. But a lot of people have put that out. They suppress people's channels. But those people are already big, you know. But I don't know, mine, I would have more views. And of course, it starts to escalate. It's like a snowball going down a field, you know, or down a hill. So if I'm actually getting, say, 200 views, and they always list it as maybe 60 or 70, sometimes less than that even, you know, the fact that you get these views means that they send your videos to other channels to look at. And of course, that would actually motivate me as well. And I would start to maybe do a better job, say, "Oh, you can actually earn money with YouTube. So I'll actually make my channel better," and, you know, whatever. So anyway, they have a big motivation to suppress channels and to keep people down. And this is mostly for political views. It's not about, you know, I love fart videos. I like cat videos. I like a lot of comedy things. I like that stuff. Stand-up comedians a lot of time. It's not like they're going to censor them most of the time, unless it's maybe, what is his name? Deuce Bigelow? What is his real name? Anyway, they probably censor him or what's his name? You turn the thing on, you forget. Ty? No. Who's this, the little guy? Anyway, strange. I'll remember his name as soon as I turn off my cell phone here. So, yeah, suppression. That's how they do it. So they don't take you down, even though I've been taken down quite a bit. And of course, you saw that during the COVID times. You mentioned stuff about what some of these laboratories in Ukraine do, and what they were doing, and probably still are in some places. But of course, they moved a lot of those to Africa and other places, even in Kazakhstan, believe it or not. So they're doing some of these research, I guess, and in those countries. But I'm not allowed to say certain words about that because I'll get maybe kicked off again. And I mentioned that, and of course, and that's why sometimes why they took me off. I don't even know how many times I've been taken down. So anyway, but another censorship, another thing they're doing, of course, is what they do obviously in Belarus. English-speaking channels in Belarus, they've diminished greatly over the past, I guess, year and a half or so. And I'm still holding on, you know, and like I can say one of the things, how they suppress a channel is what they did to me, such as yesterday, by the way. Here my video is uploading onto YouTube. And it's like one time, you know, and I just kind of look, so how far is it now? You know, after 4 hours, 5 hours. And I think after like, what was it? Maybe 4 or 5 hours, I look and it's 83% upload. I said, "Oh yeah, it's getting there." And then the next time I look, it's at 9%. So in other words, they stop it and then they start it all over again. But anyway, it took, I think, 8 hours to upload my video yesterday, which they've had times, I think once or twice, it was even 20 hours, and oftentimes it's like 10 hours and things like that. But, you know, once in a while, but a lot of this has to do, like I say, with whatever system they're using to suppress possibility of Ukrainian drones, because you can't fly drones in Belarus. You have to register them. You need a special permission to have and fly a drone in Belarus. So because of, you know, they've had drones coming here from Ukraine and sometimes. So, but anyway, a lot of that slow upload time comes because of this equipment, but then a lot of that is also, you know, Google is doing this stuff. And maybe a lot of people, they don't do videos. They've moved from the country. They made some money. A lot of people did make money. You remember Baldwin Bankrupt, but that had nothing to do with, because the war hadn't started. You know, he left, I think. Maybe they said they didn't like him breaking into places like Stalin's palace or whatever, and so he left, and then he was in Russia for a while, and then he did similar things there. Apparently, I don't know if this is actually true, to be honest with you. And then he did some things in Czech Republic, and then he was in, he's all over the place. He's got a travel blog. He's one of the most successful travel bloggers, and on YouTube, of course. But the Irish Partisan, they were doing crap to him, and he only mentioned some of it. When he was already gone out of Belarus, he mentioned what they were doing to his channel. And there's Anfisa, I guess she was putting out a lot of stuff. They were showing how you can still party and go out and everything during the COVID times. You can party in Belarus, no masks, no social distancing, while everybody else was doing a whole bunch of silly stuff all over there. And that's, of course, one reason why I came here. I couldn't get the shot. If I get the shot, I'm dead, because I have, some, it's not a genetic deficiency, but I don't know, blood clots are prevalent in my family. So why would I put something into my bloodstream that causes blood clots? I'd be pretty stupid. So anyway, that's in a nutshell what that was all about. And yeah. So I don't know. Oh, it was over 90-some% my video yesterday before they stopped it. They've done it to me before, the same thing. So almost, one time they did it up 99% and left it there and never did anything. I look 40 minutes later, it's still at 99%. So I had to delete it and I had to start all over again. Great. So anyway, a fun fact. Russia's gold reserves has now reached 300 billion for the first time ever. Wow. A lot. Interesting stuff. As well, the price of gold has gone up very much, so maybe that has a lot to do with that. Okay. Okay, let's see, I talked about this stuff already. Another fun fact, Candace Owens said something interesting. She said, this is a quote, "The West is run by homosexual psychopaths. They certainly are an idiocracy." And of course, Donald Trump is not a homosexual, but anyway, the West is run by, Macron, Starmer, Zelensky. I'll tell you, a lot of evidence from a lot of them, and I have no idea why. Why is it? I guess it's a very strange thing. And you see in the West, of course, if you talked about the Skull and Bones and the things you have to do to be in Skull and Bones, George Bush and what's his name, John Kerry, and a lot of big elites from Yale in the United States, you had to do a circus seal on some other people that are also in Skull and Bones, which means other male members of Skull and Bones do the circus seal. God, this sounds a little bit like homosexuality to me. But anyway, so she said, the West is run by homosexual psychopaths who hate Christ. And I did mention something about Jesus, I guess, a little bit earlier. And I tell you what, there is a lot of evidence that points exactly to that place. I tell you that. It's incredible. And she added, I guess, that she despises Zelensky for his mass slaughter of Christians. And it looks like he really does he does hate Christians. There is no doubt about that. Look at what he did to the church. I mean, let's not even talk about that. That's the big topic for another time. And so for that, she is called a Russian asset. And we all should know that everyone on earth, if you do not hate Russia, you are a Russian asset. And if you do not approve of Israel's genocide, you are anti-Semite. So you must love Israel or you hate all Jews, And it makes you wonder, what about some of the Jews that don't like the stuff that Israel is doing? Then they call them self-hating Jews. They call them self-hating Jews. Wow. So obviously, Candace Owens is big on their list, Like Charlie Kirk had moved in that position too. I mean, at least as far as Israel is concerned. So what we're seeing here is very possibly, it is actually a war against the teachings of Jesus, or maybe Christianity. A war against the teachings or Christianity in general. And that certainly means Islam, because the Quran has the book of Jesus in there, and the Muslims, they love Jesus as well. They just like Muhammad more. They see Jesus as a prophet. But anyway, I wasn't there in those days. I have not the faintest idea. I'm not going to say Jesus is God. I'm not going to say Jesus is a prophet only or whatever. I don't know. I don't see how anyone can say. I don't necessarily believe something that somebody wrote 1,000 years ago. Humans are infallible. Anything can be written. There's a lot of things written today that are parts of history that are fake. So I'm not going to go along with necessarily with anything. You always have to have a doubt in your mind. So unfortunately, and that's how that has to be. If you, I don't know. That's what I call human anyway. So I wonder what the globalist establishment would do if the Shiites and the Sunni Muslims, if they decided to put aside all differences and just recognize each other as certain Protestant religions recognize each other. And what happens if they also look favorably on Buddhists and Christians and Muslims? And of course, Muslims are that. As a matter of fact, Jews as well. What happens if they were all getting together and they stopped all any kind of problems they might have amongst each other and just recognized that there's some differences and but still emphasized the things that they agree with each other on? Wonder what the global establishment would do then. Wow. Interesting to know. So in that regard, after Israel's continued bombing of Lebanon, and they've been bombing, and in spite of the ceasefire, what Hezbollah has obeyed, they have obeyed, and Israel keeps violating the ceasefire just as they are doing with the ceasefire with Gaza. Oh, no. And even Trump comes out, and helps out Israel by saying, oh, yes, it's Hamas doing it. But it isn't Hamas. And everybody knows that. Nobody can talk about any big things that Hamas has done against Israel ever since that time, or Hezbollah against Israel. It's just not happening. But, there's a big, powerful propaganda machine. I don't know if you call it gaslighting, but I guess we are just there to be getting fake news and false information. So Hezbollah announced yesterday that they now do not accept disarmament and that the U.S. and Israel seek to eliminate the existence of the people of Lebanon. And I can't disagree with them there. Israel said days ago that they are again relaunching. This is actually, so it came from Israel first. They are relaunching the war on Lebanon. And it's obvious Netanyahu, I guess, in a certain sense, he's seeking to move very fast because he wants to do this during the time of the Trump presidency. Israel has made massive gains during the time when Trump is the president, moving the embassy, recognizing the Golan Heights as Israeli territory and who knows what all, and putting his stamp of approval on the genocide of the Gazan people, and Donald Trump, oh, it's going to be great. We're going to put some hotels there for super rich people, and you guys can be cleaning the bed sheets of the rich people. What a proud job. You can live near the desalination plants and where the sewage treatment plants are located. Just think of that existence for those of you that were not able to move out and push them to Somalia or some other country of our choice. So anyway, doesn't that mean that Trump, is he some kind of a puppet of somebody? But anyway, that's it. That's all for the video today, everybody. And that's a little over an hour again. I hope it's okay with you guys. I don't really like to make long videos, but there's always so much to put out. But anyway, thanks for joining me. And see you next time. Bye-bye.